I wanted to wrap up this writing segment to just show you what happens when kids kind of take a leap off of the edge of just individual letter sounds into accessing the whole code, when they have access to more sooner, and then what it can really look like when they go to put their thoughts down on paper. So what I wanted to show is beginning writing samples, and the way that we would normally expect to see kids in kindergarten, let's say writing, it might look something like this. These are just some random samplings. They're on the Secret Stories website, and you can see them if you go to thesecretstories.com, and then I think click on Learn More, and then there's a writing sample tab. If you click on that, you'll be able to see kindergarten and first grade samples and a lot of really good, interesting stuff in between. These are typical of beginning writing samples because for the most part, they're just random pictures. There's one or two, I think there's one in here where the student was able to put an initial letter next to what she wrote. So like by the house, there's an H, and that's a higher student, of course, who's starting to get the idea of what this is about. But the rest of them are just, various pictures. Where things start to look different and at a much faster rate is as kids collect more of the code, they can do more with it. It's really not any fun to try to write when you have none of the code you need to write with. It's kind of like I'm stuck before I start. I could copy some words, I guess, if you wrote some words on a board, but then I'd still have to remember what those words are because remember, I can't read. So that's kind of the problem that a lot of early grade kids can run into when they're not yet readers and yet they're trying to write, but with the code they can't even read. And so to counteract that, we give them words in the hopes that they'll just copy the words that they want. But to do that, you have to be able to read the words. So if you can't write, you probably can't read, and then you're stuck in this catch-22. So we wonder why kids kind of moan about having to write at the earliest grades, but often it's because they can't do what writing really is all about, which is telling the story that you want to tell, going where you want to go. Now, you don't need to abandon your reading series or your phonics program, but don't rely on those to give kids access to what they need to use them. Obviously, if I have the ow sound, I can actually read and write more in my kindergarten or first grade reading series or phonics program. So the idea is the teacher can teach these things. You don't have to rely on your series or your program to teach it. You can give it to kids far earlier. So there's no waiting time. There's no grade level walls that they have to, have these delayed accesses to the pieces of the code they need now. If they have a mouse or if their name's Howard. And if their name's Howard or if they have a pet mouse, they're probably going to want to know about, and I think I already talked about this one, but in the last one, but the OUOW and how they play rough and go, ow! That's such an easy thing to hand to kids. Just give it to them. And then they've got it and it's theirs. They can do whatever they want with it, start using it right then and hit the ground running. Now, these are some different writing samples that you will see. Kids were given the words in the fall on the board. They could copy those, wrote, and then they had to build I like to what. So this little one wrote, in the fall, I like to eat apples. And he put that together himself. In the fall, I like to make pumpkin pie. I love that creative use of Sneaky Y. She knew that Sneaky Y, whenever he sits at the end of a word, he will always be sneaky because he took these capes of Superhero E and Superhero I and he wants to wear them, but he doesn't want to get caught. Now, every kid knows that the best place to do something that you're not supposed to be doing is when no one can see you. And the best place in a line where no one can see you is when you're the caboose. No one is going to do something they're not supposed to do when they're front and center and all eyes are on them. That's like being the line leader. So kids already have a built-in understanding, the social and emotional compass that guides their behavior every day. All the Secret Stories does is it bridges what they already know to things that they should never even be able to have for years, but they can have them now because in truth they already have them. They already know these aren't random stories. These are the stories that guide their decision making all day long. It's just letter behavior mimicking kid behavior, which gives kids a leg up when they're trying to read and write and make decisions about the most likely sounds of letters in words they've never seen before, not words they've had to memorize. So the work is 10 times less, the gain is 10 times more. And that's why you then start to see these abilities to put things together, like in the fall, I like to eat apps. Now, there's no secrets in this particular one, but the Better Alphabet Song is the reason that these kids are able to incorporate secrets with the individual letter sounds. If you think about a word like her, kids who only know individual letter sounds can't read that word her because they're just going to see it as h-e-ra. The kids who know the secret, that E-R, I-R, and U-R go, er, but let's say they don't know the H sound, they can't read it either. It's the combination of both. It takes two to tango. When you know the h and you know the that's when things are getting powered up. Because all across the day, text is everywhere. Kids are going, or her, I can read that word. Or ow, how, I can read that word. Or fee, I can read that word. So that's where the real magic happens, is the parallel access to individual letter sounds and secrets. So this little guy has something I want to show. It's actually a girl. She wrote, in the fall, which was the freebie, I like to go to trick-or-treating. Notice that she can manipulate with ease the positional sounds of Y, which is an upper second grade skill, like end of your second grade skill, but she can't make a Y. You can see she tries here, she tries here, she tries here. Despite multiple attempts, the easy skill remains hard. And I say easy, it's not really easy, it's fine motor control. But the hard skill is easy, and that's manipulating the sounds that Y can make, both E and I, which she had to use for like to go trick-or-treating. That becomes really interesting. The fact that she would even attack a word like trick-or-treating when it'd be so much easier to copy a word like apples down from the board, but she didn't want to talk about apples. She's like the kid with the mouse. She wanted to write about trick-or-treating, and she didn't know it was hard. She wasn't intimidated by it because to her, she just built it as she went. Trick-or-treating. She had the sound that she needed. She had the blend, tr-tr-tr-tr, and I will advise you, if you haven't done it already, to look at Beethoven blends. Either type in Secret Stories Beethoven blends on YouTube or go to the website, look at the video clips and find Beethoven blends in reverse, because that just knocks out when letters come together and make their regular sounds, but smooshed. So they're called the blends, and kids don't have to take any time to grab them. They can be as quick as P says P. And that's really important because when kids are writing, you don't want them spending a lot of valuable time on the simple stuff. So what I really love is that we've got second grade kids who would really struggle, or maybe just not even bother to write the word trick-or-treating because they know enough to know what they don't know, which is how to spell a big long word. I love that a kid who's 1 month into kindergarten who can't make a Y isn't afraid to just build as she goes a word like trick-or-treating. And that is what you see kids do as writers when they are armed with the secrets as just another extension of the alphabet. They build a word like trick-or-treating just like they build a word like hit. It's just a sound and a symbol and a sound and a symbol and a sound and a symbol. And if anything, it's easier because it's always there with what they need to get the sound or the symbol. So they don't have to think. It's just an instantaneous reaction. That sneaky Y is such an easy way for kids to start manipulating so many skills. That's why it's a high leverage skill. It opens the door to so many other things. And that's when you start to see, and this is on the website if you want to look at the kindergarten writing and then the first grade writing, it's pretty interesting because what you see is how things start to progress. So you go from the initial samples to some of the things we were looking at with this 1 month in, and then you start to see where kids go from there, which is really where things get extraordinary. These are all kindergarten. I want to show you this one up close, although there's every student that's represented because I think it's important to see everything. This one I really liked because this is a guy who, he's writing about dolphins, and I don't know if you can see it. I'm going to actually show it to you in hard copy form because I think I have it here. He's writing about dolphins, and it's interesting because he can't spell the words C or they. He spells C-S-Y with the sneaky Y. This is spring in kinder. This is an average sample. And he spells the word they, T-H-A-Y, because he doesn't have text experience to know it's E-Y. But yet he'll take a leap to write a word like camouflage, which is really interesting. Not to mention write this much, even with those simple sight words not spelled correctly. That starts to show you the power that kids gain. And then that's when they start to write. And these are all kindergarten. And write. Kindergarten writing does not need to be one word. Kindergartners can write like they talk. They just need access to the code.